Hey everybody, this is DZ Maven here, and it's time for another Gunpla review. And today I'm taking a look at an oldie, a classic. This is the original Master Grade Zaku 2 F/J. You actually get both the F and J components in one kit here. But this is a pretty old kit now by today's standard. This kit came out way back in 1995. So, as you can imagine, it's probably got, it probably doesn't quite live up to the standards of today here, but I have a few of these kits that I built back in the day, and I figured, you know what, I felt like taking a look at them. And besides, I really haven't reviewed a Zaku 2 yet anyway, so it's probably about time that I get around to that. So, anyway, but there is kind of a special thing here. So, got the Zaku 2. I just passed 200 subscribers, and I have two Zaku 2s. So here they are. And these kits I built and painted up long time ago, back when the kit was probably not that old. This is probably around the year 2000 or so, probably around that time. The first one was the standard Zaku F-type, which I built and painted up, and as you can see, it's pretty standard the way it is. It's pretty much just the way it is right out of the box. But I did take the extra step in removing seam lines and everything, and sort of cleaning it up a little bit. This was all hand painted back in the day when enamel paints were still good to use for hand painting. And I did some basic weathering on it along with some dry brushing to kind of bring it out, make the Zaku look a little gritty. And I think it was probably a year or two later I got a second Zaku 2 kit. And this one I instead modified into the J-type Zaku, the ground-type Zaku, more specifically the one from the 08th mission team. They now specifically call this the JC Zaku. I guess they had to retcon the name sometime afterwards just to differentiate it from the standard J-type Zaku, but I sort of did a bit of modification on that one to turn it into the Zaku from the 08th mission team, which I think looks a lot more interesting here. But anyway, these kits here, they are pretty old here, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at these kits here. So, all right, so right here you can kind of take a closer look at the standard F-type Zaku. Again, this one's all painted up and seam lines are removed and everything, so this looks a lot nicer than the way it would normally straight out of the box for this kit here. I do know this kit, when you get it, there's going to be a lot of seam lines, visible seam lines on it. The colors are okay for the most part from what I recall, and that you may have to do some detail painting in a few areas to really make it look accurate here. But for the most part, I think on the standard kit you really don't have to do a whole lot of detail painting. But you will have to remove seam lines all throughout the kit here. I know there's a seam that kind of runs down the back of this because the legs are basically just two halves, especially you got a seam in the front here. I know you'll have to remove seams on the upper legs here. I know you'll have a visible seam there. I think there's a seam that runs down the front of the head. I think that runs down the front of the snout on the Zaku. I think you may have to remove it. The shoulder part is two pieces. Again, there'll be a seam right there. Seams on these upper arm pieces, I know there'll be that, and seams on these other upper arm pieces as well. And on these hands here, I know this hand piece is actually two pieces sandwiched together, and there'll be a seam right there you'll have to remove. It's pretty unsightly, actually. I had to look at some photos of what the original kit looked like, and of course there'll be a seam down here. You can still see a hint of the seam right here. I wasn't able to remove it completely here, but it's still there, slightly there. But overall, I think the outside detail of this kit is actually pretty decent for what it was back in the day. I think it looks pretty good just straight out of the box. If you do a little painting and paneling on it, I think this kit will still look really good here. The styling cues on this kit took a lot from the Zaku design that was from the 08th mission team, so it'll be a lot of similar details. But they never actually released an official 08th MS team version Zaku in Master Grade form, which is why I made a modified one later on. But differences between the F and J type are really very minor. The F type has the larger cone type thrusters on the back in addition to these leg thruster vents on the back. These dents normally just come as like a solid gray piece. I went ahead and drilled the holes out of the thruster vents on them just to make it look better on here, but I think it looks a lot better. Otherwise, you have to paint it all in, and it probably doesn't look quite as good. On the J-type, these are just plugged in with these little plugs that go on the legs. This plug right here is a carryover from Char's Zaku S-type, which has thrusters right there. On this version, you just get a plug that goes there. You get the same sort of plug that goes here on the J-type. And the J-type normally uses these little shorter, shallow thrusters that go on the backpack instead of these ones here. But on my modified J-type here, I went ahead and used the standard ones and painted them red so that they look the way they do in the 08th MS Team anime. So, but I think overall detail is pretty good. You do get these little cables, which they actually come on these they come in this little plastic almost polycap-like material, and there's a little spring that goes over it. And then you have all these hundreds of little tiny ringlets you have to cut out from the sprue tree, denub, sand them down if you want to smooth them up. And if you're painting them, you're going to be doing a lot of little painting here. They are kind of a pain in the butt. They really are. If you're going to do that, I can only suggest patience. Lots and lots of patience. You may notice on here there are these little hooks on here. They're kind of throughout the kit here. If you can see it, there's a little hook right there underneath kind of in the armpit area, including some little add-on vents right here. These are the heavy user add-on parts. I have some right here on the sprue tree. This is how they come. These came with the really old, the first few really old Master Grade kits here. These are kind of a nice little add-on. You could use these any way you want and just kind of add a little bit of extra detail to your kits and just kind of glue them on wherever. And they're actually pretty. It's actually a pretty neat idea here. And unfortunately, Bandai just stopped doing that eventually. I don't know why. I guess they thought the expense wasn't really worth it. But I still have some extras of these laying around, so I may use them in future builds or something like that. But I think they're pretty nice add-ons. One of the other interesting things about these older Master Grade kits, it did come with these sort of plastic sticker things. I don't know if you remember my Master Grade the O review. I think I probably mentioned this, but these really first few old Bandai Master Grades came with these little plastic stickers that sort of covered up seam lines, but not really. They just kind of added some extra detail to the kit here. That's really all they did. So again, Bandai stopped doing that. I guess the extra expense was not worth it. But anyway, I guess we can talk about the articulation of this guy, which you're probably wondering about by now. The head here, it can go about that far around. It won't turn all the way around. And as you see, the mono eye moved there. The head hatch will open up like so. There's a little bit of detail inside of there. But there is a gear mechanism inside the head here. It's kind of hard to do. It's kind of wiggling the eye around a little bit there. There we go. There's a little switch back there. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. You kind of flip that to move the eye around. It's a neat idea, but it doesn't really work too well. Kind of glad Bandai stopped doing that. They didn't do that with the 2.0 Zaku. They kind of did something different for that. But I think the result too, because of that, it makes the Zaku head makes it look a little big on this kit, I think. But that probably is why. It's probably because of that gearing mechanism that's inside of here. That's probably why it seems kind of big. But head articulation is really not too bad on it. It can look up and down just slightly a little bit. But arms here can go around like so. There's two pivots on this arm here. There's an upper one right here, and there's a lower one at the elbow joint, which is really kind of weird to have, but you can joint right there. The bend at the arm is really almost just about 90 degrees, but not quite, so this is it's really kind of poor by today's standards, really, but I guess this is what you would expect from 1995. The hand is on a simple ball joint. Not really much to it. These hands are these old 3-finger, index finger, thumb hands, and they work okay for the most part here, but again, these really aren't the best hands for having a solid grip on things. You do get some other hand options. You do get a standard open palm hand with some detail on it. In addition, there is a fist hand. Let's see if I can find one here. Should have one somewhere. Here it is. Yeah, and you do get a pair of fist hands as well here. So if you just want to pose it with a closed fist there, so you do get hand options with it. I mean, the hands are okay. They're not really too much to write home about though. Shield, shoulder shield, it's on a ball joint. It can move around a little bit like so. If you want to position it however you want. This other one, it doesn't really position around too much here. I mean, it's on a ball joint too, but it doesn't really move around too much here, about that much or so. That's it. Torso, there is no waist joint in here. It's solid. It doesn't move at all. You do have a little cockpit hatch. This opens up this way, like so. And there is a little pilot guy in there on this side, along with, I guess, what is the nuclear generator is over there, I think. But you don't get the little slide-up cockpit hatch here at all. You don't get that on here, so it only opens up like that. So moving on down, we do have the waist here. Front skirt armor pretty much doesn't really move at all. It just moves barely. That's it right there. Side skirt can move up that far, not much at all. So pretty poor there. Back skirt armor is fixed in place. It doesn't move at all. Thrusters, these will go around, they'll go up and down like so. That's it. And I should be able to take the back off of this here too. I think I can pull that off, so you can see some of the internal detail on the backpack there. Some pretty nice looking detail on the backpack. Besides that, there really isn't a whole lot of internal detail on this kit here. There's no frame inside the arm. There's barely anything in the torso besides the cockpit area. You saw that little bit in the head there, and there's nothing in the upper legs. And there's a little bit on the inside of the lower leg, but there's really not much there. I know there's a little piston you might be able to see right in there, but that's just sort of a dummy piston, and it's not really attached to anything, so you don't really have to pay any mind to it. But getting back to the articulation here, the leg can bend forward about that much. not really good there. It can bend back about that much. That's it. This is only going to spread the legs apart about that far, so not really that good there. Leg bend is just about 90 degrees. The knee part will move a little bit like that. The hose, it's flexible enough to get the job done. It's kind of stiff, but it's not that bad here. It's okay. And down in the foot here, these feet are kind of big. They're like a solid block of plastic. There's not a whole lot of range to these things. They can move in about that much and move down about that much. That's really about all you're going to get. Side to side, they barely have any side to side movement. So this particular old Zaku kit is pretty good at just standing there and looking good. If you want to do some dynamic poses with this, I would suggest getting the 2.0 Zaku if you want to do some posing, because otherwise this guy is almost a brick for the most part here. So yeah. And before I move on to extras here, I'll let you guys take a closer look at my J-type Zaku here. There were a few changes I made to this here, just to kind of show off real quick here. Most obvious here, I did paint the power link cables on here gray, as they're supposed to look. The side shield is a darker green color with these spikes I added on, these sort of blunt spikes. And on the arms here, I added the cuffs on here. They are just sort of pieces of plastic. I just kind of wrapped around it and just painted with the arms, so they don't get in the way at all on this here. I did add these sort of fox cutouts on the front skirt armor. It's supposed to be some sort of wire mesh vent there, but I think this is probably close enough to the look here. And down to the foot, of course, we painted this the dark color to match the knees and the feet here. And oh yeah, forgot to show the bottom of the feet on the F-type. The F-type has a thruster on the bottom of the feet. The J-type does not, but I did cut it out and replace it with this sort of piece of plastic there to just sort of block it off there. But the other thing, well, the backpack, I kind of removed the fins on here. The other thing about this version here is I tried to add a waist joint in here. So it does wiggle a little bit, and it can kind of go back and forth. It can kind of lean back a little bit if it needs to. This sort of comes apart like that. There's a little peg and rod inside of here. So this is sort of my really early attempt at modifying these older kits to have a little bit of better articulation to them. I also added in some extra panel lines. I scrapped in some more panel lines in a few areas on this here too, but overall, I think this guy turned out pretty good here. I think it looks pretty good here. I won't base my review score off of this one here because this is modified, but I'll probably lean towards more of my standard F-type there for the review. Okay, so talking about extras here, and there is quite a lot of extras that come with this kit in particular. And since I have 2 of them, I have double the extras, including a couple of bonus items that I threw in from some other kits here. So anyway, let's start out with the standard Zaku machine gun here. As you can see here, it's a pretty nice looking machine gun. It looks a little small in the Zaku's hand, so, but I mean, it's okay. It can hold it okay well here, pretty well, I'd say. Magazine can come off like so. The scope can move around if you need it to. This comes with a clear plastic piece that goes in here. So if you want this to be pink, you'll either have to use the sticker. I can't remember if a sticker is provided for the scope on the rifle or not, but if you want this to look right, you are going to have to paint that. I know you do get a sticker for the mono eye on the main head, but I usually prefer to paint the mono eye, as I said, using the stickers. But anyway, the magazine for this can come off, and you can attach this onto the Zaku via 3 hard points that are on. There's one on the side skirt right here, right there, or you can stick it on the back right here. If you don't fold it well, you have to kind of work at it. It'll go in. Well, maybe not. It'll go in there. You have to kind of force it in a little bit. However, in addition to that standard Zaku machine gun, you do get this machine gun, which is the MMP-80 90mm machine gun. I think this is a much nicer looking machine gun for the Zaku. It actually looks a little bit more like an actual machine gun instead of, you know, this thing, which looks like it's from World War I or something like that. But this looks a lot nicer. Again, the Zaku can hold it pretty well here. It actually does have a little holding latch that'll pop out, so you can stick it on the back of the Zaku if you want for storage. And the magazine will come out if you want, just like so. And you can stick it back in. It's a pretty nice weapon. In addition to that, you do get some extra magazine pieces, like so, just for adding on to the side skirts or the back skirt, just some extra magazine details if you want. It is kind of hollow on the other side here, so that does kind of detract from the detail a little bit there, but you get that. The other big weapon for the Zaku 2 is the standard Zaku bazooka here. It's an okay bazooka here. I mean, it's fine. The scope will move a little bit. You got this secondary handle, move around a little bit. It will twist a little bit here, like so, if you need it to. And sometimes it's in... I mean, this is supposed to be glued on, but it comes off right there if you need it to. Yeah, as for holding this, there's really only a couple ways you can hold it, this weapon. You can do the standard, the easy way is to have it under the elbow, like so. That's pretty simple here. Now, if you want it over the shoulder, you have to kind of work at this a bit. It's not going to look quite right, simply because the limitation and the articulation with this kit. It's going to have to be something kind of like this here. So, yeah, something like that there. That's how you're going to have to do it over the shoulder. Again, the hand will not grip around this completely if you do it that way, and it'll just kind of fall off pretty easily. Now, the close range weapons for the Zaku 2, we have the Zaku 2 Heat Hawk. I have one kind of in a dark purple color, which is sort of the standard color scheme for the Heat Hawk. And I have this one, which is kind of in a green and a dark blue color, which is the kind from the 08 MS Team version here. So, they're okay looking weapons. They do look kind of, again, they look kind of small in the Zaku's hands. You will have to paint these up to make them look right, because I think they come in like a blue plastic color, which doesn't really look right to me. So you will have to paint these up to make them look right. But probably the more distracting and annoying thing is that it's got this long hook-on peg on here. This is for sticking it on the side skirts or the back skirt. I really kind of wish this peg was not here, because If you're posing it with in the Zaku's hands in a nice little pose, you're gonna see this little peg sticking out right there, and it just looked kind of so. Kind of wish it wasn't there. But wait, yes, there is more. With the Zaku kit, you do get the Sturmfaust weapons, little holder bracket, and the Sturmfaust itself. You get 2 of these. It's an okay weapon. I mean, you can't really do a whole lot with it except stick it on the Zaku on the side skirts. But yeah, you get 2 of these, 2 Sturmfaust. Yay! And also, you do get these little missile pods. These go on the legs of the Zaku 2. You have these little, this little cover right here. You kind of pull this cover out, and then you stick this on and wrap this band around the leg, and just kind of hook it in. I'll just show you a picture of what it looks like here, so you can get an idea. But they go in okay. The missiles on the inside are loose pieces. They're kind of hard to get out, again, if you want to have like one out of the tube or anything, but it's not really a big deal. I think it looks okay with them posed on there, so it's an okay accessory, I think, so it's pretty nice to have. And I don't want to forget to mention that we do have the option of adding a commander's fin to the Zaku 2 if you want. The kit comes with 2 types. You have this sort of a real type fin like so with some detail on it. And you do have the more anime-like fin right there, which you can see right there here for the Commander type Zaku. You can use whichever one you want, and this is a separate piece here, so you don't have to plug them into the top of the head on the Zaku. You have to kind of switch these out with the headpiece that's kind of on there. But wait, there is still more. We do get a set of cracker grenades for this kit. They can come out. They are just basically these 6-sided grenade things, and they are normally kept on the back skirt armor via this little holder thing. So again, a pretty nice extra to have here. So yeah. And lastly, you do get pilot figures for these. You get some seated pilot figures that go inside the kit, and you get these 2 standing pilot figures of Zeon soldiers. I went ahead and painted these up with the kits here, and they look okay. Yeah. Okay. Probably one last thing here. I do have an added bonus accessory with these kits here that I kind of added in later on. This is the Magella cannon that comes out the Magellan attack tank. It's actually an accessory. It only comes with the MS06 Charge Zaku version of this kit here, which I do have, but it's kind of that kit's kind of never going to be finished or put together properly because it was sort of an experimental suit that I sort of chopped up a bit and tried to add extra joints to and everything, and it just sort of fell apart, and I never got around to finishing it. So I took the cannon from that and just kind of gave it to one of my Zakus here. I think it looks better with that anyway here. So, but as you can probably imagine, detail-wise, these kits are okay in general. Articulation is pretty poor overall. However, I would argue that the one strength that these old Master Grade Zaku kits have is in the accessories department. These things come with a lot of nice accessories, and they're not up to the quality of today, but you do get a lot of nice stuff to kind of work with here. So if you want like a Zaku kit with a lot of optional accessories and you kind of want to configure your Zaku into whatever loadout you kind of want and just have it painted up and standing there looking good, these kits are actually still pretty good for that. I mean, they generally do come with more accessories than the 2.0 Zakus come with today here. So again, I think that is probably the one advantage these kits kind of do have. But yeah, these kits came out back in 1995, a pretty long time ago. They retail for 2,500 yen, which is about the same price. It actually is the same price as the real grade Zaku 2 kit you can get today. It's here. And I don't remember what the 2.0 kit price off the top of my head was, but I'm sure it's like a little bit more than this. But generally, the 2.0 Zaku is pretty much superior to this in every way, except for the number of accessories, though. I do believe the accessory count you get for these kits is a little bit more, because I don't think you get cracker grenades with the 2.0 Zaku or the Sturmfaust, or the nice-looking MMP-80 machine gun you don't get with the 2.0 kit. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what these kits are. if I were to, well, actually I do have ratings for the old Master Grade Zaku 2 kit. I'd say detail-wise, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. It's not terrible. It's pretty good for its time here. I think it looks better in general than the old Gundam 1.0 Master Grade overall, because I think the proportions of this still generally work out pretty well here. I noticed in a lot of the old Gundam video games, they kind of use the proportions and stylings of this Master Grade Zaku 2 kit in it. I do remember specifically that Zeonic Front had a lot of Zaku 2s that looked almost identical to the Master Grade here. So I mean, that does kind of go to show something here, but the design probably was repeated several times over. As for articulation, it would only get a 3 out of 10. A lot of that is because there's no waist articulation. These side skirts are just almost immobile on this, and the legs are just not really good for posing at all. You can get this up on an action base. You have to use the little big fork prong connector. It stays on relatively okay, but I mean, you could probably pose it on there, but again, the legs don't really move around that much, and I think that limits the articulation quite a bit on these kits here. Plus, the hands don't really hold things very well. Especially this Magella attack cannon thing, that is so hard to get the Zaku to hold on to, because it holds on to it really weird. It has to hold the little tiny handle on bottom and the big handle off to the side. It's really kind of a weird thing, and it takes a little playing around with to get it to hold it right. But in terms of extras, I think this thing's pretty good. That's probably the strongest point with these old Master Grade Zakus. So I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. You get a fair number of extras with these kits here. Especially if you want to configure the Zaku to your liking. There's a lot of good options there. But the accessories will obviously look better if you take the time to remove the nubs and sand them down and paint them, obviously. And there's a few gaps on them, and it's kind of hard to do pose with them, I'd say, and that kind of detracts a little bit on them. But it's still a pretty good assortment of extras with this kit. And value, as old as this thing is, it's kind of hard to recommend it value-wise. I mean, it's cheap. There's no doubt about that. They are cheap. But, I mean, are they worth having now when the 2.0 Zaku is out there and it's so much better? Probably not. I mean, even the high-grade Universal Century is probably better in some ways than the old Master Grade here. So I probably feel it's probably like a 5 out of 10 on the value score for me. So it's kind of just right in the middle there, I would say. I mean, there's still some cool aspects about this old Master Grade, but then there's a lot of things about it where if you're not into doing gluing, panel line removing, painting, these kits are probably not going to be worth it, I would say. So at the end of that, I'd probably give the old Master Grade Zaku 2.0 a 24 out of 40, which puts it into the slightly above average range. So, I mean, they're okay kits overall. I wouldn't really recommend them anymore because, again, the 2.0 is just so much better. So, anyway, but again, if you like having lots of extras and lots of extra guns and stuff, I mean, these kits are pretty good in that respect. Everything else, though, they're kind of on. So, unless you're willing to put in the time to make them good, though, then it's kind of more of a thumbs up. But if you're just straight building stuff, just pass on these. But they're kind of relics of their time, I would say. They're almost like antiques now. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review and a look back at a really, really old Master Grade. I have a couple other old ones hanging around too, but I'll probably get to reviewing at some point too. But anyway, guys, hope you found this informative, and I hope you like my paint job on these things here. I mean, I did these ages ago, but I think they still look pretty good even today here. So, but anyway, leave a like if you liked the video, a thumbs up for me. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and be sure to subscribe and check me out some more, because there's always got more stuff coming. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time, and thanks for the 200 subscribers. I did notice, so 2 Zakus, 2 Zaku 2s, 200. Awesome. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.